Welcome, everyone. It is December 17th, 2024, and this is the 9 a.m. board briefing meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Jordan, Waldrop, French, and Kearns are in the conference room. I believe we will be joined virtually by Commissioner CUNY later, but she's not with us quite yet. We're going to lead off today with a presentation from Kyle Tooney. I'm going to give a briefing on the purchase of furniture for the Public Works Operations Building. Very good. Oh, and we have Commissioner CUNY with us.
Good morning, Commissioners. Krista Riley is here with me today. She's our project manager on the Public Works Ops Building. So she has the actual details of what's going on with this furniture acquisition. The high level of this, though, is that we had money in our budget for the acquisition of the furniture, and this is a equipment as well for the ops building. But by going through our state contract, our cooperative agreement, we can save some funds as opposed to having our design builder procure all the furniture and equipment and then marking it up. So Crystal will kind of walk you through who and what and a little bit of what we're doing.
Thank you. So just as a refresher, the operations building is our old Wilbert Vault site. It's at Cedar and Sharp, just north of our central shop. Our Public Works we'll have a training room, our bridge crews going in there, our sign and signal shop, construction inspection, and then a materials testing lab. The furniture plan is from One Workplace. Our architect has been working with them. That's who we have the contract with. The total cost of it is going to be about $280,000. We ended up about $11,000 under our projected budget for that, so that was good. And we are asking that you guys consider this under today's legislative agenda. There are going to be price increases in the new year, so we wanted to get it in this year to avoid those price increases.
So this is in outfitting the entire building, but this also includes things like the ovens we need for our materials lab for testing the rock and the oil, and some of that very, very outdated equipment in our lab and for sign and signal that are not coming along with us.
Any questions?
And thank you for considering this afternoon. We tried to brief it last week, but it was a full agenda, but trying to make that year-end price increase. So we're probably going to save 6-7% at least on this by getting it through before year-end.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been joined by Arian. Come on up to the table and tell us about a BEAD letter of support.
Wonderful. Well, Commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And this is definitely a long-awaited moment. So before you on consent agenda, there'll be a resolution for a letter of support that will accompany the Spokane County submissions to the Washington State Broadband Office. We have 24 project areas as defined by the state. As of right now, Broadlink has met with about 14 private internet service providers, and we're honing in on Broadlink taking a little over half of those, but we're then going to be able to come alongside others. A requirement of the grant submission, whether you're a public entity or a private entity, are letters of support. The Broadlink board, of which Commissioner CUNY, Scott and Kyle sit on there, approved a letter of support at the PDA level, but we also would like to have that show of support county-wide. And we have until the end of January for the application window. As an aside, I'm really happy to report we've acquired our letters of credit for the application. We're still planning to use both the state match and our local match. So really Spokane County that's got a big lift is chugging right along, and that has to do very much with the Broadlink board and you as the commissioners. Commissioner CUNY, anything else you wanted to add, or Scott, Kyle?
So I'm happy to add. So thank you, Arian. I briefed this just briefly yesterday, just under miscellaneous, as we were talking about another letter. But this is really great for us to put this forward to show our support of Spokane County to make broadband, across the county better. So I'm super excited if we can actually get to the BEAD submissions, that we'll be successful and we'll be doing that across the county. So I think it's, as you said, there's 24 areas. So this just lets us be ready to give this letter to any of those areas, whether it's Broadlink or Comcast or any other fiber company that is wanting to do it, that is going to be putting it forward, because we really want to make sure that we're showing that support. And then what we're doing at the Broadlink board is we will do individual ones for each submission rather than just a generic overall one. So thanks, Arian, for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
I also wanted to pass out, the Broadlink board did approve a letter of thanks. And so there's a letter of thanks for each of you for the year on their half and my half for making this year a success. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is Gil.
It's really mean.
Okay. Randy's gonna stand in for you.
Yeah, it's Ray, it's our finance.
Okay. Gonna talk again about the
Good morning,
Johnson.
commissioners. Yes. So on your, this afternoon's agenda, of course, is this signing of the contract with JCI. Last week, we started the discussions on the financing of it, and you asked us to come back to have more discussions on that. Ron, I emailed you a spreadsheet earlier today. And this again is where we had different levers we can pull for financing. The primary ones, again, would be any of the ARP that is left over. And then we have debt. And then, of course, you could also use fund balance if you so choose. Part of this is going, part of these upgrades will be for the public safety building and the courthouse / annex. And so the city's share based on their current rental space of that is about $3.8 million of that cost. So, we would charge them through the joint use agreement. So if you want to apply that money against the purchase of this project, this is a 3-year project again, remember. And so that 3.8 million would not be all in the first year. It wouldn't spread over a 3-year period. Excuse me. But if we applied that, then we can choose, how much ARP we want to apply. If you're using some of it for other things, we can all, like Ron, if he goes in there and says, we're going to use 9 million, just plug that, put 9 million into that cell C5 if you can, Ron, which is currently at 10.3. And then that changes the debt amount up to 12.9. And that will then calculate the new annual payment, which is down one cell out of our view at the current, there that goes. So that recalculates what the payment amount will be. So again, we could say we're going to use less debt fund balance. We're going to use more debt. If we said 0 for ARP and 0 for fund balance, for example, that would get us to about a $32 million of debt, roughly. Actually 32 even. And that would be an annual debt payment of about $2.3 million if we change all of those, everything else to 0. So again, this, we don't have to have an answer before we sign the contract with JCI, but as we start into that, we're going to have about $12 million of payments next year. We probably should have an agreement from the commissioners. How are we going to fund this project? And so this is just to open it up for that.
And I know we're going to get to some, one of our last topics here, we're going to have the commissioners talk about the use of the remaining ARP that's now in general fund. There's about 10.3 million there. So I think we can pause on the, how much to invest in the campus infrastructure to get that point. But this is helpful to just to show the different levers that you have, again, knowing that we have payments of about 12 million in year one, 12 million in year two, 12 million in year three. We don't have to solve for the entire 36 million, but having visibility for the commissioners of options, how we might pay for those. We have the availability to pay for those, leveraging either the remaining ARP that's now in general fund balance, and a combination of that with debt. So.
And then for the payment of the debt, of course, we did show you the REIT one capacity on the right-hand side. We have 3 commitments right now for debt payments. So that leaves us about 1.7 million left of our annual capacity. We collect about 3.6 million a year. That could go up, you know, if the housing market takes off, but right now I'm going to say we're going to stay at about 3.6 million. So that would give us about 1.7 million of payment capacity in REIT one until at least 2033, when the fairground debt comes off, and then 2034 when the scraps debt comes off.
Question.
Yep.
Is this document, I saw the email, is it saved somewhere like in a shared drive?
I will,
Trying to
I
edit
can,
it and
I can put it in.
I don't know if that's just a
Oh.
user error or what.
I think I had sent out a protected document so that formulas couldn't get changed.
Okay.
I may have protected one too many cells.
You
But
don't think I'm
Really don't
trustworthy
want us
to?
to-
there's certain cells I wasn't gonna let you change.
It's Josh you have to worry about.
I will resend that to you, Commissioner, so that you can play around.
Oh, I
with it.
see, okay.
There's really 2 variable pieces, and I think let's highlight them for the commissioners that they can enter. It's really your how much of the ARP and how much of fund balance. Everything else is formulaic, so if you change this, it changes this, stay out.
Received.
I mean, the other way to look at it too is with the debt payment, we've got about 1.7 million in REIT capacity. So if you were to take the debt and double it up to about 22 to 23 million, you'd use all of the remaining REIT capacity.
22.5 million is about 1.65.
Which then
Yeah.
doesn't allow any further use of REIT one until the what's the fairgrounds is the
2033.
first one that comes off, 2033.
Another question. Do you have like a list of the last 5 years of all the uses for REIT one? Kind of get a sense of
We
what
do
is,
have a history that we can provide you.
that might be helpful just to think about
Yep.
taxing that, you know, revenue source and what that might mean for ability to do similar projects in the future.
And we do still have some in reserve that we have not used, but yes, I can provide you with a 5-year history of that. And how much we still have in reserve
For
in
REIT.
addition,
Oh.
for REIT one, in addition to the annual 3.6.
I would say generally it's been for facility types of improvements. It may have been at golf courses, may have been parks facilities, may have been on the campus here, but typically in-year projects, $1 million here, $500,000 there. So it's given the commissioners the opportunities to be kind of targeted as in terms of what the needs are at a given time. So I think it's been a good tool to not fully utilize so that you have the ability
Yeah.
to make a decision within a certain year to go at those
And
projects.
plus, it could be helpful, like yesterday when we were looking at the new fair restroom building. We got a grant, and I'm assuming when we applied for the grant, we showed REIT as a match.
Yeah.
So,
And that one there would have been REIT two, but REIT
Oh, right.
one also does a lot of things like remodels.
that's
so,
right,
Like the Monroe Court
which would be
building.
helpful for Monroe Court, yeah.
So we want to wait and kind of to these numbers when we're talking about item E.
Yep, my sense is we wanted to give you just kind of a follow-up on the financing with some updates in here. And we had what was in here before was the joint use agreement percentages relative
That
to
was
the
just
public safety building.
building.
And the city does also use some of our annex as well, annex and courthouse, but to a lot lower extent. So we have updated this to reflect the small utilization they do in there. So, yeah, I think it'd be good to come back once we get down to that last.
Okay, well, let's hop over to Under Sheriff Richie. He's gonna touch on the stuff from yesterday's agenda item, and then we'll move on to Ashley, and then we'll come back to Randy as part of our discussion about ARP.
I'll just.
Hi, good morning.
Take it away.
Sorry about yesterday, the snow and Leavenworth kind of held me up longer than I thought it was going to. So first off, I have a couple the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission grants that we applied for. They're called mini grants, and they're just for supplying moving radar to the vehicles that we use in two of our contract cities, Deer Park and Medical Lake. And so this will just give us the opportunity to purchase radar equipment for those cars for traffic safety in those small jurisdictions, no cost to the county. So, and then the other one is, yeah, I'm sure you're all aware of our mental health field response unit, the co-responder unit. One of our findings, our last grant cycle, was that we didn't have a competitive process for our subcontractor for providing mental health professionals. So we have gone through the RFP process, and we're going to be putting out bids for or proposal or request for proposals for the subcontractor for the mental health professionals, and that'll be coming out in the beginning of January, I believe. That's all that item is, just our proposal. I don't think the RFP was uploaded because it's not completely finished yet, but it should be available soon, and the process will go through the beginning of, or I'm sorry, end of February, and I think there'll be a competitive process then, and then an award in March.
Question on that. What's the current staffing of the clinician side? And then if it's less than we would like it, is the idea that the RFP might help explore other options? Or what's the thought process behind the RFP?
Well, like I said, it's a requirement from the grant, and we haven't done it. And so it was
That's a good reason.
it was our only finding. So
Okay.
it was funny because they said, hey, you know, you've never had a competitive process, and we've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years. And I said, no, we haven't. So, yeah. And the other idea is I do believe it'll open it up, and Frontier Behavioral Health currently has the contract, and they provide 1.5 clinicians right now, and so they're having staffing issues. So, you know, there's other agencies out there who potentially could win the bid, and maybe they have better luck at staffing. We're only asking for them to staff 2 at this point, and so I'm hoping that the competitive process maybe makes it so we have a continual staffing of 2. We have other ideas for staffing the other positions that are currently happening. So I think with this contract as a supplemental to our the other ideas that are in the work, I think I'm hoping that we'll have all of our positions full. And then also for this next grant cycle, my plan is to ask for more positions and actually enhance the program. So, and hopefully we'll get all those positions full with clinicians and co-responders for the unincorporated valley jurisdictions.
I think we're good.
Awesome.
When does that, you and I talked about that, when does the next WASPIC grant period come up?
It opens January 8th. That's when the opening is, and then it's the award would be on March 11th, I believe.
And that's the one that the sheriff's department is considering asking for more positions.
Yes.
Yeah, more funded positions.
Yes.
Okay.
Just one more follow-up on the other ideas that you have. Can those ideas be funded out of this grant, or is that okay?
That's well, that's what I'm gonna ask for. Yes, I can't, I mean, they can be, there's money available, so that's my goal.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Ashley. Well, I guess this actually kind of leads into the next one too, because
The follow-up to the last.
All right.
Try and let the door close. Like, feather in the bun.
Well, Jeff and I are back as a follow-up to last week. We were talking about Spokane County Wayfinder interactive signage. So did some more research this week to see if we could narrow down kind of some pricing. So after digging in a bit more, if we were to move forward with 4 locations, at each of the locations, facilities would need to run power for each screen where not available. And then IT would be required to run networking cable to each of the devices. So about $1,500 per device. I connected with the sheriff's office and spoke with them about the most recent purchase that we've made at the county for touchscreen, which is in the real-time crime center that some of you probably saw last week, 2 weeks ago. The interactive screen that they had, so those could be utilized in those spaces, and we do get a pretty sweet deal on some contract pricing there. So for a 55-inch Samsung Smart Board, we're looking at about $2,000 a piece. So not terrible, honestly, for that. The third piece that we would need to add is a digital wayfinding software. I just found kind of some mid-range options, which includes map customization, interactive features, integration with mobile apps if we wanted to do that, and then potential for multiple building layouts. The annual software cost on that runs anywhere between $5,000 and $25,000. So I didn't do a full deep dig because we need to really look at that, but Ron and I did chat this morning. Zoom actually offers a Wayfinder platform as well. So there's definitely options out there that we could utilize. From a county staff perspective, we'd have some one-time needs from staffing for the facilities team to run power for us, and then for IT to come do all of the connection for us. And then ongoing staff needs would be a dedicated resource who would be responsible for content management moving forward. So that's what that all looks like. The estimated project costs we're looking, I think last time we came in and said 75. Realistically, we're probably more at like the 30 to 50K range for the 4 Wayfinder signs. So if we have your blessings, head nod, and a place where you want to find us that money, we'd be happy to move forward with this project.
Is what 4 buildings or what 4 locations would you want these signs at? I assume one at the front door here.
Yeah,
The
before you
courthouse.
get through the security.
3
Yeah.
security
Yeah.
locations, public safety annex here, and then the entrance to public works. When
Okay,
you enter the main, there's that old just
Uh-huh.
static board.
okay.
Changing that.
Yeah, and then in the future, and this isn't something that we've put into play now, but we could look in the future at queuing. We have queuing software actually at the county already, so in the future, we could do some sort of queuing, click here to be seen by, I don't know, Public Works to pay your sewer bill or things like that, and they can actually drop into time slots. So there's a lot of cool things we could do in the future, but initially it would be looking at it more for just that wayfinding interactive signage.
Patrick did, Patrick for 20 years. Pat did reach out to a couple of the counties that were mentioned and he just got info back yesterday, so we haven't had a chance to really
I did dig
learn
in.
those leads a lot,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
some good ideas
Yeah.
on different technology, how it's worked for them and kind of after the fact feedback.
Yep.
So some good leads there too.
So it seems that, so this is more about kind of helping folks find where they're going on campus, and then, so as to the language access part of it, I assume like along the bottom, it may have, different buttons that you'll hit, and then it would translate it into something, but
Goal would be kind of like what we have on our county website, which is a Google Translate, right? So
Okay.
kind of click the globe and then it can pull up the different
So,
languages. So we,
standard, it would kind of sit on English, I
Yes,
assume, and
yeah.
then if somebody needs to
On
change it,
Fridays,
they hit.
yeah, and that's where that software would come in handy to figure out what does that look like, what can we
Okay.
do with it.
And the nice thing about that is it is 175 to 200 languages
Yes.
on Google Translate, or I think Zoom has a translate platform too.
Yeah.
So it might not be that legal level perfect, but it's gonna be a workable level for a broader.
Any questions?
I'll just say I was walking down the hallway here last week and I saw a FedEx guy come in and he was looking at the board that's currently up there. I'm trying to figure out where he's supposed to go, and I think the names there's judges on there that aren't even in office anymore. So this is kind of a interesting little example of how this might help.
That's a memorial, Chris. That's why their names are still up. Like, wow, you wanna take those
I
down?
didn't know that. I knew that. Just was gonna ask about if there's any new information on language line. I did chat with the auditor last week and she reiterated she'd appreciate having that. Do we have any numbers on that? I mean, we can ask Tim Fitzgerald, what it's cost him so far. I would imagine it's not much.
It's roughly $1 a minute. And I believe it's a 3-minute minimum. So you're always gonna pay a minimum of $3, give or take, per call, $1 a minute after. There is no monthly retainer or anything like that. It's just a
Oh,
use it, pay for it. And so I think Tim Fitzgerald, the clerks, is a little bit cheaper because they have more usage, so there is a little bit of negotiable what your prices will be. So it might make sense for her to maybe join on his account. She can look into what her own would cost, or the board could allocate funds. I guess those would be your main choices, but it's not a huge cost unless you're using it a lot, because it is a pay to play, so to speak.
So to summarize, as I understand it, there's 3 areas that these digital leaders could provide for the county. It's digital wayfinding, language translation, and then content that we could roll and have available for our community who comes in here and highlight aspects of the county, whether it's our aquatics facilities during the summertime, whether it's our great trails and conservation land that we have, variety of things that we might be doing. So we could roll content through there on a regular basis. So it could provide a number of different good solutions or good opportunities for the county.
Just want to say thanks for the work, and it sounds like there's some good cost savings relative to what we thought anyway, and opportunities. And there's some good looking screens in the real-time crime centers. I think that'd be a good opportunity to improve the navigation to get to the right place.
All right, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll stay with you if you wanna roll on in.
Sean Keller to come join us as ARP questions come up. And do you want to leave this one off, Scott? Do you want me to?
We've just talked about the funding, or is there anything more?
Well, I did want to briefly talk about this afternoon. You'll see an amendment to what you passed last week. We had some communication with Treasury. We think we're gonna we'll be fine in the end, but we're not confident the end will be before January 1st. And in the 10% chance we're not fine, we, being Heather and I, talking with Scott and others, believe we might as well move the remaining part of our parks, the Camas Meadow and the Plants Ferry, into category 3.1 and do, the original resolution had about $23 million in that general fund ARP swap. This would be about an additional 8. We already did 2 million of it, and we would leave the park purchase where it is, because that's historical and we've been audited. This would take us up to about 31 and change. Talking with Tessa in the budget office, our capacity is a little bit north of 40. So we're still well beneath what our capacity is when you look at the salaries of detention officers, sheriff deputies, not including things like the Valley contract, just county sheriff deputies. And the ME's office, those are the 3 categories that are expressly allowed, actually called out as examples of what is allowed in the ARP rules. So we're very confident in that allowed usage. We're also taking a very conservative view of the time frame. It's only during when we were both under a state and federal emergency. So we're into the double emergency time frame, looking back at COVID. And so while we think we're fine how we are, we'd like to kind of put a bow around it and just know we're fine doing the swap. Of course, that also includes another $800,000 from the Vendirex that would be included in that swap. Bottom line, nothing changes to your net new available money we talked about last year. And then we also had a small amount, 1,400 give or take. The Microsoft contract with our IT, they found a date error in the contract, even though we had a final fully obligated contract. That date error will net you about $1,400 more of net spendable. So you will, those of you who might have, perfect memory, you might notice the number changed just a little bit, but you're still at 10.3 for rounding purposes. If you have questions, happy to answer more detail, but that will be, those are the changes you will see on the 2 p.m. It changes about 3 different lines. Data. Well, if that was okay, so then we'll go into, briefly touched on last week. Some commissioners have brought forward a couple project ideas for this new available uncommitted general fund. We have the Newman Lake project, we have the digital signage we just talked about. And Commissioner French brought up another one that's budget related, not ARP related, on the Adult Teen Challenge. So those are the 3 that I'm aware of.
In the campus infrastructure.
Campus infrastructure, yes.
I have one more to throw on the list, it's just potentially, we had Kira Bauer come talk about the child care pilot. Just wanted to suggest that perhaps if there's any question about whether mental health sales tax is the right spot for that, perhaps it could be thought of as a kind of workforce pilot project to continue that under the old ARP dollars. So I was just thinking about some kind of bridge funding, not her entire request. I did have a conversation with her. Sounds like the groups involved in that pilot project are working with other organizations to try and establish Medicaid billing for some of the services that they provide. And that's actively going on and sounds promising based on what she's saying, but won't be done, I don't think, by the new year. So that was just an idea too. I just wanted to throw it.
How much was she looking for?
I think her request was 400. That it was in the multiple hundreds of thousands. So I was thinking less than that.
Yeah.
To try to help them get through to a more stable billing situation.
I know that in discussions with Jeff and others that on the Adult Teen Challenge, I mean, we've already put money into that to get more beds for treatment and stuff. And they are at the closeout of their project and running about 150 short because of some extraneous and additional requirements that have been made of them to be able to finish up fire protection and some other things and stuff. So whether that would qualify for opioid dollars or mental health dollars or ARP dollars, I'm not really campaigning for one or the other, but it just seems to me that they're so close, and the ability to get more beds and treatment would be a good investment to try and help them finish out the project. Otherwise, we're going to be delayed in being able to get treatment beds open and available for folks that are suffering from either substance abuse or alcohol or whatever. So that was the nature of my request, and it's, we've already given them some money to get along, but as they got through the construction and stuff, they got hit with some additional requirements that were unanticipated. So anyway, that was the nature of my request.
Commissioner French, was that on the original ARPA list?
It was similar, it came in through ARP and went out through mental health.
Yeah, went out through
The project, the Primera thing at the Northeast Community Center, that one, the library conversion. Kara's group in this, those were the 4 that came in. Ray Dean kind of eventually separately, but those were the 4.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I was just gonna say that Chrissy was doing some looking at Kira's presentation. It looks like she had requested 316,000.
60 or 60?
316. So I don't know if there's a way to do 150 for that group and 150 for Kira and say, you know, this is your bridge funding, this is what we can do, and you're kind of, you have to go from there to find
Yep.
your funding.
I think on, if I recall correctly, on the adult teen challenge, it was, what were they asking for, Commissioner? Was it one?
150.
149.7.
Okay, and doing some people to reach out to Justin, and he felt like opioids certainly could be an eligible use, opioid funds, and
Right.
mental health sales tax could be a eligible use as well. So those
Right.
are availabilities. I think
So rather than just ARPA general fund.
yes,
Yeah.
of course, that is also an available use, but it could fit into another category. And
Oh, okay.
and Commissioner Jordan did reference the one that Kara Bowers is asking for. Maybe staying away from mental health sales taxes is a preferred approach. So that may be a better one if that's the desire of the board to do it through the ARP now general fund dollars. So 10-3 is what we've got, a little over 10-3.
But yeah.
A little over 10-3. So we've got the Newman Lake one, which I think is 300,000.
300 is what they're short on, yeah.
Okay.
And that was funded out of ARP. We
Originally.
had Ben and Derek come talk about the whole pylons and how that's
Right.
added the additional cost, so that's what they're short, so.
We've got the digital signage / language navigation, maybe 30 to 50. I might suggest doing that up to 75 if you're wanting to, just to give us some additional headroom in there as we go
Yeah.
out and so 75 for that. Adult teen challenge probably could be solved with opioids or mental health sales taxes, and then a number that Commissioner Jordan just raised. And then for the Kara Bowers, did you say maybe
Maybe
150?
for
Asked for
maybe
316,
half of
some number.
316. Yeah.
And then
Half of
I
what she asked for.
advocate for whatever's left for campus infrastructure that reduces our use of general fund reserves, and reduces our use of debt that we have to take on, so. Or so that you all do.
I'm good with that.
No, I think you just nailed it.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice job. I mean, finally got it in for the end of the year. How do you feel?
One. Send you off for the year, one positive.
That
You
seems like a
remember
good,
that?
that seems like a good list. I would just, maybe we could do half for care about whatever was it 316, then it would be whatever half of that
Math
is.
is, I don't have enough coffee for that.
Yeah.
158.
There you go.
Cause I do think that
Excuse me.
that project is doing some good work to keep our childcare workforce healthy, mentally healthy and providing childcare. And I'm hopeful that the priorities book can focus on childcare access and helping develop the childcare industry here. Will provide some future resources. We'll see where that goes.
And what we'll do is we'll work with Randy and Tessa and Jeff on all of the conversion from ARP to general fund that has been committed. The budget team is working through encumbering those and placing them in an account so that we can separately track all the projects individually so the commissioners have visibility. And we do the same thing. We'll note for these that of the remaining 10-3, we're going to do 300,000 for Newman Lake, 75,000 for our digital signage language translation, 156 for Kara Bowers, 158 for Kara Bowers program, and the remainder will be for our campus infrastructure. So now we've got the answer back to what Randy had shared earlier on the financing funding piece of it. And when we and the contract for that is on your consent agenda this afternoon. So I wonder if there's any further questions that I wanted to spend some time on, but we'll get all those numbers documented so that we've got them tracked on the
Do we need,
uncommitted. You need a resolution.
that's not like what's the formal way, or is,
Well, when we actually, I think having the placeholders right now, when you take your actions on these, we'll have the specific funding. So we'll come back with a contract for, we'll probably have to revise it for Newman Lake, what we're gonna commit. So that'll be via resolution.
That's true, when we do comment, so do you guys care what fund stuff comes out of? Like, I know Justin. My understanding based on my conversation with him yesterday, when it came to adult teen challenge, he thought opioid would be the best use. But I called him out of the dark, he slept on it. Do you care? You guys kind of care which money it comes from after we talk with staff? Like Newman Lake and digital signage would be the new general fund capacity. The adult teen challenge, based on a conversation with Justin yesterday, could be mental health or opioid. He was thinking opioid would be preferred. The Kara Bauer project, I want to check with Jim, have the same conversation we had on all of our other general fund. We only had a couple of things that didn't qualify. And how did WorkSource come out? Do you recall, Heather? Workforce.
Source was eligible.
It was, so it probably is eligible, because I would say it's a very similar thing, but want to run that trap line again to make sure. I know Justin has had some, at least cursory concerns on mental health. So probably we can touch base with Jim and Wes on that. Are you guys good kind of within that general theme of funds?
Yeah.
Putting them where legal thinks and budget thinks makes the most sense.
And
So
then
you
we'll,
think the second week in January we'll take action then?
I think we can have all the contracts ready after that. What would be the
Okay.
next meeting?
I think Newman Lake and the Kara Bowers, yes, the digital signage will probably come later once we start to procure contracts, get the work set up, but we'll at least earmark it these dollars. And then you'll with your action this afternoon on the contract, then we'll obligate the remaining amount towards the campus infrastructure dollars. And then the adult teen challenge, we could also bring forward to out of the first couple weeks of January.
Yeah, because they're in construction, trying to wrap everything up, so
Yeah.
I think timing would be very helpful for their
Yeah.
standpoint.
And I think it's probably well worth, at the beginning of the year, having another run through the opioid dollars. We've mostly committed the dollars that we had been receiving through 2024. There's some that has been uncommitted, but it may be worth taking a look again at the projected receipt of dollars and see if there's some more prioritization the board wants to do and recognizing the adult teen challenge that Commissioner French just highlighted.
Just a comment, just wanted to say, I agree, we need to do the Newman Lake project. Appreciate the board's support of the other two ideas. And I'm good with the mix here. The only other thing I was thinking about was, I know there's some needs in juvenile court, particularly the bathroom, which Tori mentioned to me recently. So I just hope we can continue looking for ways to deal with those types of needs in the future. Maybe the juvenile sales tax could be part of that. I did explain to Tori the significant need for the campus improvements and that the costs on those are only going to go up. And so she understood that, but I just wanted to mention that as we all know, we have no shortage of capital needs in addition to what we're talking about here. So
I'll be another reason why the commissioners may want to not fully utilize their
Right,
fund
right.
capacity
Yeah.
for other things like
I
that to
think
come up.
because what we had said was we were gonna circle back in January with the capital improvement plan and look at some of the items that we just didn't get to. And look at what the funding source could be. But I know there was a couple other things on there beyond juvenile, so. Well, I think the sheriff had some
yeah.
things too, but I know that they're out there looking for grants as well, and we have that on our federal agenda as well, so that's good.
Okay. That's excellent. Thanks for the direction, board. Cover everything we did.
I think, yeah, we're just up against the 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so we got 15 minutes before the legislators get here. So are there any miscellaneous items?
Randy's got it.
I've got a miscellaneous.
Oh, go for it.
Commissioners, on your January 7th consent agenda is going to be a resolution that will call for a public meeting on January 21st This is to implement the the juvenile sales tax that we passed the last year. We have to do that by ordinance because we have to change our county code. And so that first resolution will just be to set the public hearing on January 21st.
Okay.
And Jim has it all teed up for us.
Go for it.
So yesterday, when we were going through the committees, we had the one committee, the industrial committee that has not been active. And we said, well, geez, maybe we don't need that anymore. And then yesterday afternoon, a project was came forward that could utilize that structure for us through R3 and attracting new business to the community. So I shared that with Randy and I'd like to ask that we just kind of take a pause before we get rid of that in case we can use it as a tool that we have that available to us. So kind of a $32 million project, and
I'm sure, I'm almost positive in years past, there's a reason or there's something that prevents us from getting rid of, I don't remember what it was. Amacio knew what, I know Amacio told us what it was.
and I had the conversation with Jim this morning, and he's gonna circle back. But an opportunity has come forward that structure might be very helpful and cool, so. All right.
Very good.
We've got a little issue that Kyle and team discovered this week, yesterday on the STA property. So we have Kyle give the board an overview and consider possible ways to.
One that we're selling.
Yeah, so if you guys recall, back in the end of October, you authorized us to sell the property at University in Appleway to STA. We kind of got everything dialed in on that. As we've gone through the diligence, STA's board approved it as well. And we were finalizing the purchase sale agreement. We noticed, I'm not gonna call it a Scrivener's error because it's more significant than that. When Deb put together the resolution, she cut and pasted an extra line in the legal description that modified the legal description. So it's in essence an inaccurate description of the process of the property to be sold. STA really wants to get this closed by year end because they want it on their 2024 budget. The purchase and sale is dialed in, but the resolution that you guys authorized is technically the inaccurate legal description because of that cut and paste error.
You need us to do a buy leave this afternoon?
If you would consider it, then I have a resolution ready to go. We're just dialing in a couple of legal checks and balances on it, but we think we're clean and we can do that and then execute a clean purchase and sale agreement this week.
Yep, and if you just make sure we have a typed out resolution.
Yep,
For
it's
someone
dialed.
to read, or I mean, our typed out motion for whoever's wants to read that motion at 2 o'clock, and we'll open up a hearing and close it, get it taken care of.
We do have just some final reviews by Matt and team that makes sure that we're procedurally following this correctly for the board, so we don't have to do this again. So that's good. We'll wait on some final research on his end.
And the wrong legal description had us buying City Hall.
And we're selling City Hall.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just, it does actually modify the legal, so it's significant enough that we should not do it without cleaning that up.
Okay, we'll get it taken care of.
Yep, thank you so much.
I wanted to bring up, I saw so city council, when they adopted their budget, they have $30,000 in there to evaluate sort of their future with scraps and moving forward. So something, I don't remember how it was worded, essentially was $30,000 to study scraps and alternatives for the city. So their contract is up at the end of next year. So I think, being a good municipal partner, we should maybe make them make clear what sort of our intentions are. I mean, I know we received several months ago, sort of a presentation that kind of showed the large amount in which we kind of subsidize every city, including theirs. So I mean, I think maybe if we were to send a letter letting kind of showing those numbers, making sure that they kind of know the playing field, or we want to maybe indicate whether we want to continue to have certain customers of scraps or not. So I think just giving them as much advance notice as possible would be the courteous thing to do.
The language that I saw was 30,000 is going to study the scraps animal control contract and potential alternatives for the city when the contract expires at the end of 2025. So in the scraps contract, it does expire. There is no notice requirements. Although on something like this, of this size and scope of services, it just seems like it would be appropriate for us to be clear with another jurisdiction as to intent. So we don't get to the end of December and all of a sudden we're not providing services. We are, there's no auto renewal. So, you know, I'd hope another jurisdiction, whether it's City of Spokane or Arrowhead Heights or whoever, would know what their contracts say, but it probably makes sense for us to make sure it's clear and we're communicating.
And they're still not in compliance with the contract, right? Because they changed their city code, which was in violation, that they have to change their codes to match ours, and they did the opposite.
They have not remedied their contract defaults to this day.
Mr. French?
And the only alternative that they have in this market that I'm aware of, and correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody knows different, is Spokanimal. And Spokanimal refuses to do enforcement. And that was the challenge we had with them when I was on the council back in the 1800s. And so, and we were paying more for animal control when I was on the council than they're paying today. And the other thing that's changed is now, when I was on the council, it was just dogs and cats. Now it's pigs, goats, and chickens and everything else. So it's a different day today than it was 20 years ago. And like you say, we're not recovering 100% of the cost. So I don't know it was ever our intent to subsidize the other communities, because everybody was supposed to be paying their own weight. So I think giving notice and making our desires clear is fair to the city, to make sure that they don't go in with any preconceived notions that they might be able to negotiate a cheaper deal when we're subsidizing them already.
Sure, Jordan.
What if the CEO sent a letter to all of the cities whose contracts are gonna come up for renewal, saying that here's the time frame where these contracts are up, and that the board will be exploring other funding options to include a more cost capture type structure, accurately reflecting the jurisdiction, just so it's to all, because we're not just subsidizing one, although one certainly has a unique perspective on it. I think that would be a good way to go.
Cause I'm remembering this, I think the city is up next year. Some of the smaller cities might be the year after, or maybe 2 years later.
Or currently expired.
Oh, or current, okay, and then I know the Valley, I mean, they're like 2030 something, I mean, cause that was like a 20-year contract. Yes. Signed with them, but.
I do think that's a good idea because our scraps team has been working with Matt's team on revising the interlocal, so that we have a very consistent template for all jurisdictions. And our intention, as we presented to the board, you saw the disparities in some of the T-star for each city and what they're paying and the out of balance, to have one message go out to all of them so they know clearly, and we're not, as opposed to having the scraps team individually doing that with them. So I like the idea that Commissioner Jordan raised.
You could include the chart or something that shows the data on that.
Yep.
Be good.
I'll work back with scraps and Matt's team to get something created.
I mean, this is just me speaking, but I mean, I think it's kind of at a minimum,
It's timely.
the cities are going to have to agree to a cost recovery on our part. Like, there's no way we can subsidize their animal control for their jurisdiction. And if they can't agree, and Also, I mean, if they can't agree to that, then probably gonna have to find a different provider. So, I mean, you know, however politely you want to put that.
Well, I think as the commission has seen the pressures on our general fund this year and only growing in out years. This is an example of the county reevaluating each of his contracts to make sure that we are doing appropriate cost recovery. And scraps is an example. There will be others as well, so.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Any other miscellaneous? We have some of our guests joining us, so.
Some more chairs for the.
Yeah, let's go at ease for about 5 minutes. We'll come back at 10 o'clock and we'll be joined by our legislative delegation.
I figured you did if you showed up to work.
Never defeat party.
Yeah, I just, we end up right there.
Right, welcome back, everyone. Again, for the record, it is December 17th. This is our board briefing meeting. We are now going to move on to our next agenda item. We've been joined by several members of our legislative delegation. We're gonna be discussing our legislative priorities for the 2025 session. So I'd like to go around the room and have each of our legislators introduce themselves for those of you that are with us online. So start down here.
Senator-elect Leonard Christian from the fabulous Fourth. Senator-elect Marcus Riccelli, third district.
Representative-elect Rob Chase, fourth district. And I have to leave at 10:30.
Representative-elect Andrew Engel from the seventh. Hunter Abel, also newly elected from the seventh.
Okay, and then online with us, we have Mike. Oh, we did, just lost.
Mike Burgess says just that.
Yeah, we just had him a second ago. Okay. There we are. All right, and then we are also joined online with Mike Burgess, who is our county lobbyist. Okay. There he is. Hello, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, sorry about that, commissioners. I accidentally closed the window, so I had to reopen it. So,
All right. So
yeah.
Mike, would you and Jeff like to kind of lead off with the creation of our legislative agenda and kind of go through some of our items?
For sure. So I think, so first of all, for those of you that don't know me, I know there's a few newly elected legislators. I'm Mike Burgess. I'm the county's contract lobbyist in Olympia. I'll make sure to get all my contact information to you directly or to your legislative assistants, so you know how to get a hold of me once we get into session. Also, we'll plan to meet with you the first couple of weeks as your schedules permit to talk about some of these items and touch base on them again. But I'm going to run through these kind of by section, and then I will maybe after each kind of section, so there's kind of capital budget, then transportation, then policy, maybe pause if there's any questions after each section, and then commissioners, if you wanted to have some commentary on some of the specific items, that'd be great. I will just start here with this is the Spokane County's Stabilization Center, and trying to capitalize on opioid settlement funds that have been made available to states across the country for various reasons. This is a capital budget, but those funds are available for operating as well. But in this case, we're focusing on hoping to do a carve out there of $3 million to fund this capital project. The next one, the Plants Ferry Sports Complex. For those of you that are familiar with the youth sports world, this is a place in Spokane that gets a lot of use. There's already been a significant commitment of local money that has gone into this project, and this would be to continue the work that's already been done there. It's a really big economic development driver, as I mentioned, for youth sports. Any of you that are familiar with the world of soccer and the tournaments that those bring in, and the folks from around the state and region that come and enjoy that and use the facility, these dollars will help enhance the existing project that's there, or the existing park that's already there. On the next page, Nova Hilliard. This is a child center. This is not a new request. I think this is something that folks would be familiar with from last year. Did not receive its funding in the capital budget last year, but have re-added it to the list. And then the Bellevue Water District, also something that was on the county's list last year that did not make it into the final budget. So there's the first four items. Commissioners, if you wanted to comment on any of those, that'd be great. Or legislators, if you have any questions, hopefully we can answer those between myself or somebody else there in the room.
On Nova Hilliard, what does non-traditional childcare complex mean?
So the unique thing about it will be providing childcare off hours, which we don't have. If any, very few childcare facilities that are able to provide swing shift childcare. So that's why it's called non-traditional. And it's been a dream of many people to have that available with Hollister Steer. Jubilant Hollister here just down the street that has shifts going, you know, all day and night. It's a great opportunity to provide that childcare as well as other affordable housing and office space. So if anyone else had anything to add, that's.
It's right about kind of at, it's on Wellesley, right near Market Street there. Northeast Public Development Authority has obtained the property from the city. I think the city kind of got it through a really kind of messy foreclosure situation. NEPDA now controls the property, and I think Representative Volt, I think, kind of ran what was sort of the lead on trying to secure the funding last year. But we had bipartisan support for it, and just hoping to bring that home today. And yeah, like Commissioner Waldrop said, it's to the primary target or kind of uniqueness about the property was it would provide childcare, but outside of your traditional, 8 to 5 time frame.
So is this private company or is this a? Or what?
So once the facility is constructed, we put out for an RFP for a provider. So it would be a competitive process to see who the provider that would be the childcare entity that would provide those services.
So the building would be owned by the county.
Would be owned by the Northeast Public Development Authority, which does have representatives from both the city of Spokane and the county and citizens that are appointed that serve on its board of directors.
And is this split out? Because the 3.5 million there's housing component as well, or is this the 3.5 million just solely for the childcare component?
It's a mix.
That's what I thought.
The
Okay.
project
For the
is probably
building
in the
itself.
10 plus $1 million range. Yeah.
Okay. Because when I chat with them, it's just, for a straight like member request, 3.5 is on the heavy side. There's also other buckets of money. So I think just continue to keep kind of a creative eye on different funding streams. But just typically what we see come through, although it's a regional project of significance, 3.5 is probably for a capital budget mark. It's on the higher end. And so my hope is too, if there's some other buckets, but also like there's ability to secure some other amount that there would be work to, figure out how the other components can come in as well.
I was just wondering how many customers are served by the Bellevue Water District.
Customers. It's like,
How many customers?
Yes.
36 are on the system, and the system is failing. And so right now, the city of Spokane is providing emergency water service to the area. But they cannot take it over until the system that's in place gets rebuilt. And so that's what the money is, rebuild the system. Then the city of Spokane will take over, and it'll become part of the city's municipal water system. Yeah.
that is dialable, correct? Like that would just be if there was some amount under 2 million, the ratepayers would probably I could just dial up where they're at.
Yes, yeah.
Same.
And so I know that you and
Yeah.
Representative Volts have had conversations about that, and we've notified the leader of the neighborhood that, we expect to be participating. It's not gonna be 100% gift. Yeah.
And Senator-elect, you are familiar with the Plants Ferry Park
Yeah, I'm really
project.
pleased to, see it on there. I think there's gonna be moved countywide that Plants Ferry is just gonna get left in the dust if it's not upgraded, which is really a shame with all the potential infrastructure. So we've had other entities like the Hub, et cetera, get dollars for this project is being navigated. So I think it's great to see it on there. I would, like to work with particularly folks in the Valley. Hopefully that will pop up. But yeah, the folks who run it have communicated, if tournaments are not going to be showing up there. Some of the higher level soccer tournaments aren't able to engage anymore because of the fields and use. And then just more of the capacity regional wide, just for lacrosse, soccer, the turf fields are just needed out here. what am I missing? Turf, soccer, football. Just trying to think of some of the stuff that goes year round.
Parking.
Parking, yeah.
Oh, I noticed even the park, restrooms or honey buckets at the moment.
They have one facility that's decent, and then they have a couple, actually, they have like four
Okay,
constructed facilities out there. One's, I would say, nice, the other ones are a bit up. Oh, yeah, that's very, yeah, the one where they have like concession opportunities and stuff, that one's pretty well taken care of, got an upgrade, largely because a private entity came in when it was, I think there was some flooding or something that happened.
Yeah, this is a facility that's loved to death. It's used by everybody. And so part of the effort is going to be to replace some of the turf fields with AstroTurf and stuff so that they can have a little bit more durability.
Okay, you in a spot where we can move on to the transportation projects? We have the, oh, sorry, Commissioner.
Could I just for the newly elected, are you familiar with our crisis stabilization center here in Spokane County? It's a really unique facility where law enforcement or paramedics are able to take folks who are in crisis rather than the jail. And so this would actually allow us to expand that and have sobering beds associated. It could be a really amazing opportunity in our opioid crisis to provide much more crisis stabilization than what we can today with the current facility.
And you can divert people from the ER too, if that's not the most appropriate, cost-effective place for them to be when they're in crisis. And this is something we've all coalesced around as a top priority for our local opioid dollars. So we have significant there, as well as mental health sales tax. And we've been pursuing federal funds as well. And we have a congressionally directed spending request that has made it through committee and is on track in the Senate. Never know what's going to happen at the federal level, but we've had great support at that level as well. So we're just really hoping to get some resources for public safety and behavioral health.
in what area are people accepted to the facility from?
The entire county.
I believe it's the countywide.
Yeah, it's countywide and stuff. So if a law enforcement officer, first responder encounters somebody that's dealing with either mental health crisis or substance abuse, in the past, what had happened is the law enforcement officer would take custody, bring him to the jail, incarcerated, and jail is not a mental health facility. And so this crisis stabilization facility is the first of its kind in the state, and it works extremely well. Not only do we have the opportunity to take somebody that's having a crisis and get them into a treatment center, but the other part of it is that we don't have to use county taxpayer money to provide the medical treatment because they've never gone into the jail, so they don't have a record. So now they can use Medicaid dollars to be able to provide treatment for them and stuff. So it's a very unique model, but it's working extremely well for us.
Is the facility able to bill Medicaid for any of the services provided at the facility?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the primary funding source to the MCOs, the managed care organizations. It does actually, because the stabilization center was concepted out of, it's regional, it was concepted out of our BHASO. So there's a 6-county consortium that are part of that, Adams Ferry, Lincoln, Ponderay, Stevens, and Spokane County. The sobering facility is really directed more towards Spokane County specific. The vast majority of the users of the folks that are diverted from law enforcement into the stabilization center are City of Spokane. About 92% of them are City of Spokane, but we have had some from, I know, Stevens County as well.
If that's ever a facility either of you want to tour, I mean, they regularly do tours to folks that want to see the operation of the of the current facility. But yeah, the funds were that, as Commissioner Walters stated, are want to build a facility that's right next door to the, and it's literally 100 yards from where we're sitting. It's just kitty corner right here on our campus. So yeah, if that's ever anything you guys want a tour of, we can easily set that up for you.
Is that a separate from this list here, the crisis stabilization? It's on the
On
first page.
page 1.
So it's basically
Oh, you
like
went
an
back.
expansion to provide more sobering
Where it says
beds,
stabilization.
because we just don't have those here. And the current facility has certain federal requirements that, so this would be an expansion related to this current facility, but being able to provide more services, like in a slightly different model.
Are they gonna tear down the garage and rebuild it there? Is that, or are they gonna modify that garage or?
To be determined,
That's
whether it can be repurposed or not.
Because the current facility was a former garage that they were able to convert rehab, so it's pretty neat. It's this old looking brick building, and then you step inside and it's brand new. They did a fantastic job with that, so.
How long are people typically at the stabilization center? Is this like a 48-hour thing or is it like a 10-day thing?
So I know the original concept when we built it, it was designed to be a 72-hour, but I believe individuals do go beyond that because we have our 16 beds that are crisis stable, the crisis stabilization beds, 16, and it's capped at 16 based on federal reimbursement rates. You can't have more than 16 in one facility or they won't reimburse for those additional beds. Then we have a few sobering beds, and then we have holdover beds. So if somebody completes their crisis stabilization period, they're stabilized, they don't have a place to go. We do have, I think, is it about 20 holdover beds roughly?
Yeah,
That they can stay until they have a safe place to be discharged towards. But it was originally, the concept was 72 hours. But I mean, I think there are individuals that go beyond the 72 hours if they need it.
30 days possibly.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
like, so one section is people who actually are going through treatment. And it's like about a 30-day, and those beds are always full.
So you've got people residing there while they're going through treatment. Oh,
So
interesting.
there's like 3 sections to it. It'd be really interesting it was a really interesting
Yeah.
visit, and the staff there with Pioneer do a great job, and a lot of people who work there are in recovery themselves, so it's.
Former folks,
Yes.
folks that had formerly gone through the crisis stabilization center are now employees there.
So this will give us just a lot more capacity, so the dollars would go towards either renovating or building a new facility next door.
Are the treatment services provided on site or do they travel from there to, okay.
Right on site. Pioneer they're the contractor, and they provide it right there in the facility.
Can we, Mike, did we have,
And
Was-
state was involved in.
yeah, the original, funding, but I was gonna say, for this ask, did we do any capital funds out of the opioid settlement dollars? I'm not clear.
So to my understanding, Senator, those are allowable funds.
I was
So
just wondering
it's-
if we did do it though, if there was, it'd be nice to point to an example if we did.
Sure. No, I'll make a note to see if I can't track down, but I just know it's an allowable use.
There's some true blood money involved with this too.
I don't know if your funds were realized at the state yet, your last budget cycle.
We had street,
You had
there's,
some in place?
we had a significant amount, probably.
Because ours came maybe after yours.
Yeah, so we budgeted a significant, and then there was stuff that was in the pipeline that they kind of projected out that we were able to look at.
That was one of our thoughts, like if we have our opioid settlement amount that we're willing to put some towards this, but if the state is willing to put some of the settlement dollars that went to the state, could those be matched?
Yeah, and that's actually for other stuff I'm working on. I just don't know how much we allocated, how much is left, and even if it is allowable, if any of it did actually go to capital, because it'd be helpful if we did send some out to capital to be able to point to it.
Well, Senator, if I could work with you, maybe I can draft up an email question. If you wouldn't mind helping to clarify with staff, that'd be great.
No, that's great, because I've been needing to ask, I just don't know how much, even for operating stuff, how much is unallocated. And
Okay.
asks.
I'll get something to you in the next 24 hours, but at your legislative address.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the list, we have 3 transportation projects. These are carryovers again. probably all of you are going to be familiar with these: the Four Lakes Interchange, Glen Rose Corridor, and Argonne Road, Upriver Drive intersection. The commissioners and I do understand the realities of the transportation budget and the challenges that it's facing right now, but do want to keep these projects front of mind and work with you on submitting requests. So at a minimum, they are in the queue. If for some reason some transportation dollars do shake loose and there's enough to cover new projects, and again, I understand the reality of the shortfall to fund current projects, but do want to make sure that we are submitting these and keeping them front of mind for you.
The legislature, both House and Senate, did provide funding for the Four Lakes interchange, and then we've got a significant amount of funding federal, because the whole impetus around reconfiguring this interchange is that it's part of the travel pattern to get to the second gate for Fairchild, which will be located at Craig Road and Thorpe. And so this will not only alleviate a lot of the traffic that goes down Highway 2, but it improves the response time for Fairchild to be able to get airmen and women on the base. But the legislature did allocate money for the initial study on this. Then the governor vetoed it and stuff. So, but both the House and Senate Transportation Committee did approve that for funding. So there's some history.
So the Argonne Upriver Drive intersection, what's the plan there? Is that gonna be a roundabout or what?
It's a expansion, because when you're going north-south, you've got the 2 lanes, you got the turn lane, but east-west is not wide enough. So it's gonna be the expansion, to make that a much larger intersection, but then it connects to a much larger corridor project that'll stretch all the way down to the bridge. But this is just focusing on the intersection at this point, expanding it. But no, I believe, to my understanding, I think Kyle's on here. I believe it is still going to remain a stoplight. We're not planning for a roundabout at that intersection.
That's correct, Commissioner. At this point, it's still being studied, but most likely the outcome will be signalized.
Yeah, I know we back up a lot of traffic on the turning lane there. It almost needs to go further back, but I wonder if there's land there available. That's all.
It will require land acquisition. Yep.
Okay, moving on to the next page. I think I'll do these first 2 together, and then maybe there's 4 that are kind of housing related. So the first 2 both deal with county fiscal health, but the first one in particular there, you'll notice in bold the AOC caseload standards, and that's coming down from the administrative of the courts, and it deals with the criminal justice for the county and costs that ultimately are passed down to the county through someone referred to them as unfunded mandates. Over the last 10 years, this isn't something that has been a huge concern because the legislature, frankly, has had money. There has not been the budget constraints that we're walking into this year. As a result of the budget constraints, counties in particular are very concerned about cuts to state shared revenues that impact criminal justice, like the AOC caseloads. The major part of the county's business is criminal justice for the courts, law enforcement, and the jail, and all those things. So anytime that the state looks at holding back funds that would flow to a county, you're hurting criminal justice response and dealing with those types of issues. So you'll be hearing a common theme from me and from other folks with the Association of Counties about this issue. And as legislators deal with what I acknowledge to be a difficult budget situation, but the reality is that just passing the problem down to the local governments won't work. And then the second item there is the clean buildings. This was legislation that was passed a few sessions ago that has public buildings complying with clean energy standards. It's a very significant cost there to Spokane County. You can see the cost to the campus there estimated to be about $25 million. There is a study that's ongoing right now that was provisoed to look at the cost for county or all public buildings that isn't due until the 2026 session. So in some ways, it's my belief that this issue will be pushed off a bit until we get into 2026, 2027, but still want to make you aware of it, that this is extremely expensive for the county. The county, through its best efforts, is doing what it can, but those costs are real. to upgrade the facilities and to make them compliant with what was in that bill, House Bill 1257. So I'll stop with those two, commissioners, if you want to fill in on any of those two, or else I'll just move straight into those four that are kind of housing related next.
Anything that anyone wants to add, or might just continue on?
He's on a roll.
Okay.
Keep it up,
The
Mike.
next four, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I said keep it up.
Okay, the next four are connected to housing. Affordable and attainable housing response. So again, that's continuing to deal with housing issues through the Housing Trust Fund, dealing with homeless issues. The condo development issue that has been working its way through Olympia in several different iterations over the last handful of sessions. There's going to be a renewed effort to expand that. I know there'll be legislation dealing with that. That's something the county would support. And then ongoing, the county has tried to work with the mobile home park residents that are in the crash zone up by the Air Force Base, that this causes problems with BRAC and those types of things. And I'll just leave it at those four kind of high level. And if commissioners, if there's some things you'd like to add on any one of those points, but I would argue for sure the first three are very interrelated. The mobile home park maybe is a little bit separate, but it is certainly a housing issue.
So one of the things that the legislature has provided for other counties in the state is an extension on the completion date of the 20-year comprehensive land use plan update. And we're scheduled to be done by June of 2026. But the other counties have had their deadline extended from June until December. It gives them an extra 6 months to finish up studies and things like that. The biggest challenge is with the climate change provisions and everything like that that are new that we're incorporating into that comp plan update and stuff. So there are 11 counties that are impacted by the 2026 deadline, and so there will be a bill just to say, would you treat us like you did the other counties, give us that 6 month extension to the end of the year so that we can finish it up in a timely fashion. There's a good chance that a lot of the counties are going to be able to meet the deadline, but based upon what's already happening with the other counties in the state that are due this year and next year, we just want to be thoughtful about providing time to do that.
I just wanted to add to that, the housing element too creates a need to coordinate with the other local governments about their rules and regulations. So hopefully we can there's a lot of active work going on that. So not for lack of trying, if the 6 extra months would be helpful.
On the mobile home park resident relocation, because some of that started in 2015.
Yeah.
What is, I just don't have a sense of what's the remaining.
So the housing element of it that had to be constructed with community frameworks, Habitat for Humanity and Greenstone, a lot of that housing is either already completed and taking some of those tenants over. In fact, just last week, we had another Habitat for Humanity home that was turned over to the homeowners and stuff. So that transition is occurring. And we are working to try and buy up the homes. City of Airway Heights has provided some provisions to try and prevent backfilling, but we're still working both with the state and federal to try and get money to buy the mobile home parks. But the relocation aspect of it, which was, I know, sensitive for the legislature as us, we want to make sure that they had a good place to go, and that transitioning is happening. It's Highland Park is the name of that, and they've developed quite a bit of housing. Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, what will they do with the land after these folks are moved off?
After the mobile home parks are closed, would be zoned light industrial and then put to light industrial uses, and with every expectation of meeting the requirements for the APZ with regard to density, no stacks, building height, all of those things, but they'd be under the control of the county.
Commissioner French already touched on the Growth Management Act issues there. He mentioned a couple of them within that. We always leave this as a placeholder. There's always bills that deal with growth management. Some good, some bad. Don't know all those that'll be introduced yet this session, but we'll touch base with you as those bills introduced and if it looks like they're going to make their way through the process. So there'll be more to come on that topic. If you want to go on to the next page there, I'll start with the first one there at the top, the TIF reform. I mean, Commissioner French in particular, I'm going to kick this to you. But this is an effort to increase the flexibility that goes on with tax increment financing districts. And I think I'll probably just stop there, Commissioner, if you wanted to jump in with your thoughts.
Yeah, Spokane County has probably been the most successful county in the state with regard to the use of TIF financing. We started in Liberty Lake with Greenstone, Kendall Yards. We've got West Plains, and now we've got Greenstone doing Meatworks up by the Costco. So it's been a very successful model with the way we structure it. We are working with the city of Spokane to try and create a TIF zone for Latah Valley so that we can pay for long overdue infrastructure. And with that, we're also looking at creating a TIF zone for Geiger to create more housing that's close to Spokane, as well as the amenities that would accompany that. One of the things that is, so there's two elements. One, the lack of clarity with regard to fire stations. So we clarify that, make it a specific eligible project. And that is not only important for like the city of Spokane and other jurisdictions, but it's also important for fire districts because they want to be able to, if they're going to be a TIF that's going to include part of their district, they want to be able to use those funds to not only pay for a fire station, but also equipment. And so that's part of it. And then the other part of it is, and this was kind of an interesting little element. I did a presentation on TIF financing back in December of last year. And in attendance was Todd Trepanere with WashDOT and stuff. He came up afterwards, he said, hey, is there any chance that we could use this at the state level? And I'd never thought about that, but then we started looking into it. And so the language in the proposal is that if you've got a TIF boundary that's created by a local jurisdiction, and there's a state-owned asset like I-90, within that boundary, that the state could use state sales tax numbers or sales tax revenue to address that asset. So the issue, like for Latah Valley, is the transition from 195 on to I-90. They figured it's about a $600 million idea. Not a high priority for the state, but it is for the folks at the local level. Well, with the TIF funding and projections of construction in the Latah Valley and the Geiger, we could pay for that on-ramp from 195 to I-90 with local dollars. And when I presented the idea to Senator Billig, he liked it for two reasons. One, it's a new source of money. Two, the money has to stay local, so it can't be flexed away to another jurisdiction. And so that's what would help in terms of addressing, big capital needs that are big on the state side, and there's no funding mechanism. This could provide a funding mechanism to make that happen. So that's what the two changes are.
And we will have a bill that's being drafted and circulate with some of you all, hopefully for signatures once we get into January.
I'm sorry, Senator.
Does this come back on with impact fees? Is that how it's paid back, or?
No, it's the way the TIF works is that part of the sales tax that is paid by the contractor when he's doing construction, part of that is put in the TIF to pay for the capital improvements. So, and you can only pay for capital improvements that are owned by the public. So streets, sidewalks, parks, fire stations, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of assets you can purchase with TIF funds.
And then I'm gonna jump ahead. How many waste to energy plants are in a state? Or are we the only one?
Just one.
One.
Lucky us.
I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that obviously is the next item. Working in conjunction with the city on that. I think that request is pretty obvious, what we're asking for there. And then moving on to the next issues, we kind of grouped what we're referring to as disaster response with the PFAS issue and wildfire recovery that's still ongoing. Any comments there, commissioners?
So we're just wrapping up the request for funding on this, about a $20 million ask. And that pays for the filtration systems on those properties that have been impacted by PFAS from either Fairchild. Fairchild is paying for a lot of theirs, but other point sources, which could include SIA, waste energy plant, there are a whole variety of different point sources on the West Plains that could be and we won't know what the mitigation is on that for a couple of years. The initial study that's being done by Dr. Pritchard isn't due until June of next year. And then ecology's got to go through and try and identify point sources and everything. It could be years before they actually collect mitigation dollars. But in the meantime, people are being subjected to having to drink bad water.
What's the ongoing cost once these systems are?
Pardon?
What's the ongoing cost? Because you have to put new filters in and
So
where's the funding stream for that ongoing cost?
At this point, the ongoing cost is $5,000 a year. And so what this is assuming is that the initial cost of putting the system in and then 3 years of operating cost. And by that time, hopefully they'll be able to get new water to them.
Right. So it's $5,000 per year per system, which is one system per house.
Per house. And the Department of Ecology has documented that there's 259 wells that are contaminated. And so that's the number we're using. So 259.
Commissioner French, could you just expand on the point of entry? That.
So there's two types of filtration systems. There's a filtration system that you can basically just put on your sink, and it's kind of a Culligan water filtration system, and that just does your sink. It doesn't do anything in the house, just does the sink. Point of entry is putting a filtration system at the well or wellhead, and what that does is it filtrates all of the water that's going on your property. And for the 259, these are rural customers, and so they're using the water to water their animals, to irrigate their fields, to irrigate and every time you use contaminated water, you jeopardize the safety of either cattle or farming animals or gardens or crops. And so if you're using the water to irrigate wheat field, all your wheat is contaminated and stuff. So that's why the point of entry systems are the other preferred system that deal with all of the water coming onto the house, onto the property.
Okay, and then the last two items, regional helicopter requests. This is something we had included last year. Did not receive funding, but it's much more than a helicopter for the county sheriff. It deals with search and rescue response for neighboring counties. I think there'd be a state component to that too, in terms of assisting with broader search and rescue issue or missions and issues. And then the last is broadband, and just continuing to make sure that the state's broadband deployment dollars are being spent in an efficient way, in a way that local governments can access. This process is ongoing. Your county has put a lot of work into it to try to get fiber and different technologies out to those folks that don't have those services now. But at the end of the day, I think the message here is we want the legislature and the state to continue the efforts it was doing with some minor refinements.
The wildfire recovery.
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner. Sorry, I jumped ahead on you there.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Don't want to pass over what we're learning with the Gray Fire and the Oregon fire is, while the insurance company is assuming that the property owner does have insurance, that the insurance companies are paying off on policy and then not renewing. And that's gonna be an ongoing challenge, I think, for the state, because it's not unique to just Spokane. I think you're gonna start seeing that crop up in other parts of the state as well, so.
Have the utilities come to you to talk about some of their plans, because they're very concerned about their insurance as well, just and how they're basically saying that fires are gonna be bankrupting them in the future. Do they chat with you at all about that?
I've had conversations with the Vista about what they're doing to try and mitigate some of their risk and exposure, including brownouts and blackouts. But the big unknown from my standpoint is what's going to happen to Inland Power as a co-op. They're clearly going to end up going bankrupt, and who's going to come in and take over a bankrupt co-op? That's a whole nother animal and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm glad it's you guys and not me trying to figure this stuff out, because it's going to be a heavy lift.
Quick question on the regional helicopter operations. Does that reach north into Ponderay, Stevens, Ferry County up in there, do we know, or?
Scott?
More time, I apologize.
What are the 4 counties that the helicopter serves?
No, that's not 4 counties we do serve. It's King, Pierce, or Snohomish.
Yeah.
And maybe Yakima. There's 4 counties statewide who've gone together. The Waspic Association, I guess, is also lobbying for this. They're the counties that have helicopters. So if something happens, we're called upon. So yes, the 4 counties up north through the Palouse, if there's an emergency, a lost hiker, whatever it is, kid wandered off, we would be the helicopter for the eastern side of the states that they would call. We also will go to Fairchild, but Fairchild can only respond when they can respond. It depends on what's going on at their level. So these 4 counties around the state would like to have some state reimbursement since they're really doing regional work.
And this is one of the counties, and it does provide services up
Correct.
north.
So we would pretty much do everything Canada to Oregon and somewhat into central Washington.
This is our search and rescue helicopter, and right now, the county does not get any sort of reimbursement for the service that we provide to most of the eastern side of Washington State.
Is there a way that, I mean, you can understand better, because saying 10 million, is that like a projection of how much is kind of annually spent statewide, or is it something where you can put some sort of reimbursement mechanisms in there? And so, right, if we have less,
That's what Waspic is going for. We kind of an up to and
Up to, okay.
reimbursed on a cost recovery. Waspic would have more details. I would kind of track that down.
I think they're looking at buying a new helicopter too right now, because the others are timing out on engines and such. So we've band-aided those together, I understand, for quite a while, and it's to the point where something really needs to happen.
Yeah, we actually already have our order in for the new helicopter. We got a $5,000 earmark from Congress, or I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
5,000.
It's $500,000 earmark from the Fed, from the Congresswoman's office. We sold one of our old, like 60s era Hueys and for a little under $1 million, and then kind of piecing together the rest for the purchase of the whole helicopter, which I think was around 3 million, correct?
A little over 3, yeah. And that's our patrol helicopter,
Yep.
Spokane, the urban area in Spokane.
and it'll have a winch on it.
What's that?
A winch on it.
I think everything.
Search and rescue is, patrol is meant to stay in light patrolling, responding to vehicle
Chases.
pursuits that are terminated by the ground patrol.
So far, we've got 2 of the 3 blades on the helicopter paid for.
The Pat?
I was just going to add, the helicopter can also be used for wildfire response. We saw with the Gray Road fire and also with the Oregon Road fire here that it was very useful. There were several rescues, I believe, that were effectuated. And then the other thing is it can be outfitted with a Bambi bucket for more wildland urban interface threats that come up. So that's another helpful aspect of the helicopter.
There's also there's thermal imagery on the camera as well, which assisted in with on ground fire response at night to understand kind of what was happening with the fire. They're able to give that information back to the ground.
Was any of the fire stuff reimbursable from DNR or anything? Do we know?
All of a lot of our ground response with public safety was, I don't know exactly what we were able to bill or recover on the air support unit.
Because that would be interesting for me to know too, if that, you know, just if you're looking at funding streams, if there's some opportunities to tap into that as well.
No, we didn't get any funding from FEMA, into the county and stuff, so the DNR would probably be the other source, so we can find out.
Did you have any proposals on this, working with insurance providers to ensure access to affordable homeowners insurance?
Oh, no, I just think it's a really tough question. I don't know if we can, there needs to be like some sort of Western states fire insurance. I mean, I'm not sure we would want to go into a risk pool with California or something, but just, you know, Oregon, Idaho, is there some sort of broader, because the answer for folks is you're now uninsurable. That's not a good enough answer. We got to figure it out, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a problem. I've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know there's the pool that basically covers the mortgage.
Might want to take a look at what Florida did with regard to hurricane coverage, because the insurance carriers got out of the market, and then the state came in and said, well, we're going to provide a risk pool, and it darn near took the state of Florida and made it bankrupt and stuff, and so they backed away from that and then tried to legislatively control the risk, but it's a challenge.
Pat?
Yes, Representative-elect Ingalls familiar with Mayor Harwood down in Malden, who would have some good insights on that, closer to the issue dealing with homeowners and people with losses. And then in Commissioner French's district, Mayor Cooper in Medical Lake has also been working with a number of the affected families and might have some ideas for you.
These all came from Chandra Fox, who's our lead of emergency management. So we can get more details from her.
I'm also curious about the individual assistance program and the natural resource public assistance program and what you're looking at for that. Maybe that's another question for her.
Yeah, I can connect you with that.
Her and Terry Cooper very close to it and stuff. I mean, one of the things that Mayor Cooper has advocated for, based upon our experience with the Great Fire, is that you know, a lot of stuff is reactionary. There's nothing put into place that a community can go to and look for assistance. And so everything was a one-off. Everything was a reinvent the wheel kind of a deal. And so I think one of the things that she's proposing, we're supporting, is having something in place ahead of time that says, in the event of, there's a way to get access to resources. I mean, the resources are there. It's just that you end up having to jump through a bunch of hoops to be able to get access to them. And by that time, people are suffering. They're out of their homes. They don't have, and so anyway, yeah.
And this would be, if you're familiar with the FEMA individual assistance. So FEMA was really developed for the hurricanes, you know, the bigger mass tragedies. As our fires are getting bigger and more frequent, having something, you know, Malden, perfect example, not big enough for FEMA to get involved. But we had something at the state level who could handle some of the smaller, or you don't hit the metrics for the FEMA, or if they do, it's usually the public assistance side, not the individual.
Right, so be creating a new program.
To my knowledge, the state does not have this. I do know at the time when I was at HUD in the 2020 fire season, a lot of them on the I-5 corridor in Western Washington, this is a state fed back and forth, because the feds will say, we handle the really big stuff and the state's supposed to handle the small stuff. And the states are looking to the feds to handle it. So it's one where it's a bit of a face off between jurisdictions, who's going to pay.
Well, that was my understanding that the state doesn't have that, but I see it's in this census, that's the state's authorized program. I don't know if there's a state program that's authorized, never funded, or.
Yes.
Yes, I do know the last, in recent sessions, there was something authorizing was not funded.
Okay.
So the program, the individual assistance program, I believe was authorized maybe after the Oso landslide, but it was never funded, and so it has like a zero balance. After the Malden fire, they were able to dedicate a few $1 million, like 1 to 2, 3 million. And then Chandra's idea here for a public assistance program would be to mirror for local governments or public entities that have losses, things like recovery groups, etc., that could tap into those funds. One of the challenges is that FEMA can oftentimes be very slow. If you look recently at the Colville Tribe's experience with the fires over the summer, even getting a natural disaster declaration. I think for our fires in 2023, it took 6 or 7 months. In the case of Malden, it took 9 months. And so there might be an eye towards having funding in these programs and having them authorized at the state level so people can get immediate assistance. Having to wait 9 months to start your recovery efforts puts a pretty big burden on these communities.
When Senator Campbell was out here for the Gray Fire, her and I toured the property and stuff. And one of the things that she was going to work on was that right now FEMA doesn't treat wildfires in the same category as they do hurricanes, tornadoes, and other natural disasters. And so it was her goal to try and expand the scope of what constitutes a national disaster and include that. So, you know, if you happen to have a conversation with Senator Cantwell, that's something that she was going to be working on.
So any other questions that you have for us? We can go back to any other section, whatever.
I think you said real quick, but this Bellevue Water District, how many hookups were on that system?
36.
36, oh, that's what I thought you said.
They're a small water district that actually is kind of on the border of Commissioner Jordan and French's district. Yeah, their system is
5 mile area.
The system is failing. I think they've been kind of patching it together, and the city has said that if it is repaired, that the city will then bring them into the city's water district, but it's gonna require the infrastructure being fixed before the city can help them out.
There is some ecology money that they have gotten that's connected with the city. I'm not sure if that was the initial study.
I think it was the study.
Yeah, of how much it would cost to
Yeah.
connect and upgrade some of the infrastructure.
Yeah, so the city has done all the engineering and
Yeah.
I mean, they're ready to move forward absent money.
Will it be able to bring on more customers once the city moves forward with this? I mean, for expansion in that area?
You know, I don't know how extensive the engineering is. I would assume with the city, they would, because I mean, they are the sole water purveyor for the 5 mile. So I would
I guess
assume
I'm wondering about
they would be
impact fees.
designing it to be able to expand onto it, but I can't tell you categorically that because I don't know.
I think that there's an idea, there was infrastructure dollars going way back that were invested, so some of those residents, they're gonna have to have some skin in the game in a way that what gets it up to speed, because it's just, but you know, the folks who are trying to turn it around up there, their frustration is that, you know, they're like, I don't know, feet away from.
Yeah, they're not
yeah,
that
from
far
city
from
water
the city's
and
line.
so, but they just
They just need to connect and
Yeah.
it's like,
So I'm assuming this $2 million is largely new water lines and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't include acquisition of new water rights to mitigate it or anything.
It's just rebuilding the water system that's underground and stuff. So, you know, and you're replacing pipe that's plastic with copper, you know, and the price of copper is expensive now. So it's not a cheap idea. And for the homeowners to do it on their nickel, and you can make a good argument that it should be on their nickel, the price just, you know, Jermaine and divide it by 36, and you'll see what the price is per home. And stuff, so they're looking for help for wherever they get it.
I know I live in a water association and we looked at trying to get the PUD to take it over. And so they're the same way. They want us to upgrade the system first.
Well,
You know, and it's like there's definitely no cost benefit here for scale, because you could you could drill new wells and do all the hookups far cheaper than that infrastructure, but.
Well, and this is an older HOA. I mean, and the new laws require that you have, reserves in place to be able to deal with these kind of costs. But this HOA has been in existence for probably 30, 40 years and long before the requirement for reserves.
I'll just put it out there. I think there's been transition in homeownership up there, and there was folks who probably didn't make the investments and tap into and do some of the things. And so folks coming in who are residents there, trying to turn it around, they're looking at a big
capital.
Yeah. If I could throw one thing out there, and not get into too much detail, but just hoping for regional support. We need, for those of you who've been to our state DVA home here by St. Luke's, it's still dilapidated, and it's time for a new one. The federal government is going to invest significantly. We do need some state funds to match that. Leonard and I have been chatting with those folks, and so we just hope for regional support. There will be a capital ask for a new state veterans home out here.
On board.
We appreciate you.
So with that, I think there's some opportunities for county and city to possibly get additional land as we move forward, some land as well. So really appreciate your support, as Marcus and I are really lockstep on this one. Some partnerships. Apparently the land that's available, we don't need all of it for the home, so it might be available for something else if we can.
Would it be a rebuild in the same, are you looking for another location?
Yeah.
Where you could expand?
Yeah, and just for instance, if you go down there, like, it's not like there's a lot of opportunity to walk outside. They have a pretty enclosed area to be hanging out, socializing, things like that. I mean, it's restricted significantly. So this would be a much better, I think, experience.
And from my understanding is that they own the building there where they're currently at, and their thoughts are is maybe use that more towards veterans who are homeless in that, because it's of the location where it's at, to help stabilize them. So that's kind of maybe a long-term model once the new one's built. So the alternative is to move it out towards the Medical Lake Cemetery, which is very difficult for veterans to get help and receive. It's just too far. And then of course people coming there to work. So as we're looking at it, it'll be, a close distance to the VA hospital. So it actually will be very beneficial for the veterans to be able to be that close to access to their healthcare for that, and for our community as well, with also the idea of possibly helping more veterans who are on the streets homeless with some additional resources locally. So it's a really good thing. We'd love to see it move forward, but we're kind of in some challenges with the gentleman who owns the land, the organization owns the land.
So what does county or regional support look like?
No, just if it pops up,
Yeah.
It's not a small ask, but just also know that it's connected with significant federal funding. And I think the difference is just access to being out by the state cemetery just is too far for these folks to get care of the VA and things like that. So, yeah.
Quick question on the county fiscal health item here. So for the revised caseload standards, I'm assuming Spokane County's penciled out how many new attorneys it would need to hire and what that would cost. Do you have any sense of what that would be if the court adopts the proposed? I think it all depends on what the caseload standards are cut to. I mean, we've heard everything from cut in half to. What if the court adopts the current proposed caseload standards? The ones that are in front of the court.
Would increase the number of attorneys by a factor of 3.
Wow, from what number to what? Like how many applicants?
That's the problem. 70 to 80 folks in our public defense. 60 plus of them, 65 are probably attorneys, so 3x on that.
with a price tag of.
Well, we estimate, I think our public defender costs are $9 million annually, so up to 27 million. And that's a really rough estimate. Those caseload standards are very complex with what they're moving to. It's all depending on, I think there's 9 different scoring criterias and each of them have different weightings. So it would all then depend on, is there a lot of like class A felonies, mostly class Bs, a lot of all different weightings in there. The misdemeanors, low end misdemeanors have your lowest weightings, the high end class A felonies have your highest weightings. A murder could be a factor of 9 for a weighting.
So I know the court heard public testimony on this proposed caseload standards. Was Spokane County able to present to the court on this and what it would mean?
Through WASAC.
Through WASAC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that the court is hungry to do something on this. I think they're going to move at least partially in this direction. I don't know if they'll do the full thing or whether it'll be phased over a longer period of time, but the financial consequences are massive.
Well, and we've recently increased the salary for entry level and increased the we're working on a 37.5-hour day. We've gone to 40 hours. So we've tried to do what we can to raise the salary level so we can attract more attorneys. But it's a challenge. There just aren't that many out there that are interested in working for government. You know, they can make more money in the private sector and you know, I never thought in my life I'd be wanting to see more attorneys.
Ever since I got here, I've changed you now.
Not for the better.
You're getting there.
I mean, the law schools are certainly stakeholders in this discussion, you know, with regard to the student debt that's being piled on. I'm interested in conversations between Rooksby and the conversations with the 2 law schools over west of the mountains. I'm interested to see what the court does on this. This is the big kind of outstanding elephant in the room on public defense.
Well, and for some of the rural counties, I sit on the legislative steering committee for Wasac, and for some of the rural counties, I mean, for an attorney, you know, you take Okanagan County, I think they're paying something like $190,000 for an attorney. We're paying $80,000 to $90,000 for. So I mean, it's not the availability is driving up the price, and the price is just. Then you take and increase the number that we have to have. I don't know that we could hire.
Andrew's writing, go to law school.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we've talked a lot about this with the Bar Association, which by the way, your incoming president of the bar is Francis Adewale, who works right now.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Francis.
he could be a great resource
Yeah.
for all of you as we think about this. But yeah, there's cultural challenges in the sense that if you get, you know, a young attorney who's just kind of starting off in their career, given the option of working in Seattle, given the option of working in Okanagan County or even Spokane County, you know, all too often they're going to go to Seattle because the money is there, frequently because of the student loan challenge. So lots of pieces to the puzzle.
A lot of dynamics in this area. Just gonna get worse.
Any other, anything for the good of the order?
Just want to say I appreciate you guys taking your time to do this as well. This is really good information. I really appreciate the opportunity to have the communication.
Well, thank you for being here.
For the
Thank you.
time.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, well, thank you all. Enjoy the session and safe travels over and for most of you back on the weekends and then back over on Sunday, so. We know very few people go over and stay there the whole session, so safe travels to and from.
I think I actually met Amy. Hunter McMorris. Mr. McMorris, hi, yeah, actually, I think we spoke on the phone. Yeah, hi, Hunter McMorris, it's good to meet you.
Yes.
Yep. Cheers.
Oh, it's good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you. Thanks for the check.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Hunter.
Hey, yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Let me know if you want to chat or something.
Yeah, it was
Conversation.
great, yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. Looking forward to, getting to know, Todd.
Rolls was finished.
Yeah.
Suzanne let us know last minute she
Working
could
on ranking
Rolls
Hunter.
had to do something with his mom when
Yeah.
he was older. You said.
Yeah.
you know,
That's good deal. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Didn't hear back from Jenny. Jenny was supposed to be here.
I can see it.
Well, we never reply. This is my fourth time doing this.
So I think we're getting all
Never
our
reply.
funding requests.
Any given year. Never.
Objections.
What do you do with your?
That's you.
My God, I love it.
Candy cases.
Well, that's true.
So Marcus, we getting all our funding requests. and it's here.
Camera's going.
Now,
Yeah, camera's going without words. and I just
told
tiny
you.
hand.
What's your
Yes.
Okay.
I know, because we were expecting nine. New chase, I believe.
Amber, Amber, we've got two more miscellaneous
So
items.
what more miscellaneous?
Okay.
So my.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Another miscellaneous.
Congratulations. Thank you. Well, we just need to.
Thank you, too.
That that we made inactive. No longer inactive.
Yeah, was the
Al just talked about.
so the Industrial Development Corp.
Yeah.
Take your phone. Check it.
Oh.
It's inactive. We haven't. The board hasn't appointed anyone, at least during my time here, to the Industrial Development Corp. So I think we heard Commissioner French that the desire or the need was to keep it active, but do we need to appoint, does the board need to appoint a board member to
We
it?
put a name on the list.
I think it's Ben now.
That we did is, there needs to be a decision. We either appoint if it remains in existence, or there has to be an action to dissolve that board. So if it sounds like you want to keep it, so that means we need to appoint. Well, it's a funding tool, and if we can put it to good use, then we need to keep it, because otherwise, and so it's funding opportunity through the PDAs.
If and
So-
when the opportunity comes up, you don't want to have to then go
You don't want to
reestablish.
recreate
right?
it and stuff and all that, so I'd say let's appoint somebody. I don't care who we appoint to it, but I think we need to appoint somebody. Yeah, keep it in place. Was that an offer to trade for Martin Hall?
Sign me up.
Oh, not.
So moved.
Where's my gun?
Open it up, public testimony, let's go.
So we just need, just because Gina's got the resolution ready to go this afternoon for your by leave on the boards and commissions appointments, we thought we'd just wrap this one up too.
Do you want to be on it, Al? Let's just add.
I'm
'Cause I think you're the current one on it, right?
Yeah.
It says inactive right now.
But, we don't have a name in
It's
there.
never had a name.
Oh,
Why we need to put it. in.
okay.
Doesn't mean that they'll meet or it'll be a continual, but it's just for the proper methodology of keeping it active, having a board member appointed. Should there be any reason to utilize that during the year, then it's still active and you create the rest of the board around it.
Well, Al, if you're willing, how about you, unless Mary wants it, we can revisit.
I'm fine.
Put Al's name on there. And we're taking the whole list by leave regardless, right? Because, yeah,
We'll just have this
Spelled out.
correction in it.
sounds good.
And then Matt, we had a quick follow-up on the issue that Kyle briefed earlier for by leave this afternoon, and Matt's viewed it and
The sale to the STA, the resolution that we passed before needs to be amended to have the correct property description in it, but move forward with the by leave resolution.
no public hearing, no public notice required. So do that as well.
There's an RCW.
Well, so I don't have to open it up for comment? We can just amend it? Oh, okay.
And if you want Kyle to do a quick, why are we doing this, then he can be available down there.
Probably good.
That's it.
Anything else for the good of the order? Pat, anything we need to be aware of as far as media contacts?
Sure, we'll be having our holiday closure message going out. So we'll be closed on Christmas. And then county departments and offices will be open back to normal business hours afterwards. And then we'll have another similar message for New Year's going out. There was a story that ran in the Spokesman Scott was able to jump in yesterday with helpful assists and get a correction there relating to medical services in the jail. So we'll be strategizing on that topic a little bit more. There's been some interest in the Dishman Hills project. There's some fire mitigation work going on out there. So if you tune into our social media pages, you'll see that. And then I have just a kind of PowerPoint of some clips that I was planning to show at a miscellaneous before the end of the year, but I'll get that to you all via email. Just shows the number of times we've been on the front page in the last quarter, some of the positive news stories that we've helped generate to raise awareness of county initiatives. So Martha Lou and I have been working on that and grabbing clips and such, but we'll just send that to you via email. And that's all I had to add unless Martha Lou has anything.
Article, has there already been a correction run? Or it's
Told it
just
was.
Yes, they
this morning?
changed it from will to may, and
I just saw the headline and thought.
the
"What?"
headline switched too.
I
So
was
it's,
told, I was told
May
they,
part ways.
yes,
But it did not run in physical
I
paper.
believe the
No,
correction.
now it says Spokane County CEO Scott Simmons told the spokesman after this articles that that Ken meant to say a vendor, not a new vendor.
Yes, I stated that, one, the commissioners have made no decision with regards to the medical services contract or detention services, and two, the comment that was made in the meeting to the commissioners was that a new contract with a
A new
vendor
contract is what he meant, yeah.
will be coming forward and presented in early January. So I just encourage them not to get ahead of their skis and presenting something that has not been decided on by the commissioners.
Must have been a slow news day that went up so quick.
Yeah, so I was told it was going to be adjusted online and adjusted before the print version came out.
The
But I
headline
didn't,
today is much better.
he didn't share with me what the changes were they were making.
Well, it went from we are parting ways to we may.
May.
Still not.
So it's still not the best representation, but better.
One last item, you may be hearing from a spokesman reporter who's writing a profile on a county employee for their difference makers. We will have a county employee, it sounds like, profiled for that difference makers series. I think you all know the employee well, but if you hear from them and just want some helpful points, I'm happy to connect with you.
Difference
Okay. Thank you very much, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, then it is 11:21 and we will adjourn our morning meeting and we will reconvene at 2 o'clock for our legislative